Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the A-Game. I'm Bobby Phillips, and today we'll be talking about the state of App State sports, with both basketball and football being hot topics. But first, let's talk about the App State volleyball team. The team has won the Sunbelt East with a record of 16-7 overall and 10-2 in conference play. But before we get into that, I'm here with Will Battershell, host of Turning Laps on 90.5 WASU, and Dylan Shepard, a sports writer for the Appalachian. And guys, this team about a month ago lost to Georgia Southern, but since then has played almost perfect. What has really changed for this App State volleyball team over the past month?
So if you look at the Georgia Southern game, even though we lost, every single set we lost was within 4 points. And even the ODU game, the series before, we still only lost by like 2 or 3 points every set. So it's really just a couple mistakes are the reasons why we lost. We could definitely be 12-0 in conference play, but overall, it's just little mistakes that they got to fix against the good teams.
Yeah, and I think that momentum from the beginning of conference play, those early losses, splitting those early series, have helped build character in the team throughout the remainder of conference play. You've seen them rattle off 3 straight conference series sweeps. They got 4 conference sweeps overall throughout the season. They've used those lessons from earlier in the year to have better, more complete games as the season progresses.
And I think overall, we had the unfortunate circumstance of Hurricane Helene hitting us, and missing that series against Louisiana probably did not help because it went from Louisiana straight into ODU. So it took them a little bit to get their feet back under them, but since then, they've been lights out.
And you talk about the character of this team, Dylan, and we talk about how great they've been. Who have been some key players that have contributed to that?
I look at 2 players that have been stars throughout the entire season, Maya Winterhoff and Lulu Ambrose. Both of them are excellent players for our attack. Winterhoff leads the team in kills on the season. Lulu Ambrose is right up there with her. They can take over games at will. I think another one that I'm looking at is Ava Leahy. She's a sophomore middle blocker. She has come alive late in the season. She has that patented slide attack during the game that she can just kill it right across the court. All 3 of them have been really good this year, and I look forward to seeing how they can continue to progress as the year goes along.
And I think that's a good point, Dylan, but you can't forget who's setting up for her. You have Addison Heidemann, who has been elite with all her sets this year. Perfectly on point, left after right, just anywhere the ball needs to go, she gets it there. And then also, one of our best defenders and our libero is Kennedy Roper. She has been the best person in our back line, dig after dig after dig, keeping that ball in play for App State to score those points.
I also want to highlight 2 of the freshmen, Bella Hutchins and Elise Marshall. Marshall is a great server. She's top 2 on the team for serving. And then Bella Hutchins has fit right in along with the attack. She's a great complementary piece with the rest of the team. And, of course, since they're both freshmen, they'll have plenty of time to develop and become stars in future seasons.
And that's really the key of our team right now, especially the last 3 series that we've played. We've seen a lot more from the younger players. And, I mean, we're losing Lulu Ambrose as our main starter, so it's going to be on these younger players to be that key piece of the team, especially Bella Hutchins because she's in that Ambrose spot. So seeing her basically break out this weekend was amazing.
And y'all are talking about some great players playing right now for App State. Out of all these players, who do you guys think is really key for this App State team going into the Sunbelt Tournament?
I think it has to be Leahy, who's considered that number 1 player that you have to look at. I mean, she's come alive late in the season. During that Marshall series, she had so many kills, so many clutch kills, and she was using that slide attack to perfection. That has been nearly unstoppable as the season has progressed, and I look to see if she can continue that momentum going into the tournament and the team rallying around her to help her get those kills, get momentum, and win sets, and hopefully win the whole thing.
Yeah, and I called the Georgia Southern game that we lost at home. And then I called the senior day game, and Leahy played 2 more sets. Both went to 5. Leahy played 2 more sets than she did against Georgia Southern. So they know she is important for this team to win. And her and Heidemann have been forming that connection, especially you saw it a lot in the first game against Marshall, but that second game, 22 kills in 5 sets is insane.
Yeah, it's definitely a great performance. And going into the Sunbelt Tournament, who are some teams that this App State team has to really be wary of and really put a lot of focus on?
I look at a lot of the West Division teams, mostly because we haven't played them, but also because there are 3 really good teams in that division. I'll start with Arkansas State. They are the top of that division right now. They've played very well, 22-4 overall. They're 12-2 in the Sunbelt. Obviously, we haven't played them yet, so the first time we will play them is if we get further on in the tournament. I also look at Troy. We play them soon, but like after that, after we get a good look at them in the regular season, they should be ones to play well in the tournament as well. Those will be two teams that I look at in the West Division. For the East, it's got to be Georgia Southern and Coastal Carolina. We played both of them. We split the series with Georgia Southern, and we swept Coastal Carolina. We won against Coastal Carolina for the first time since 2018. So that was really important, and we swept them as well. So those are two teams I'm looking at. I feel confident we can beat those teams, but I'm more worried about the West Division as it stands right now.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Coastal at all. Like, we swept them pretty handily. We came back by 11 points in the third set, just dominated them. I am more worried about Georgia Southern because both games that we played against them went into multiple rounds of sets, and every single one ended within 5 points. So Georgia Southern's a really, really good team. We were probably lucky to get one out of it, which better be lucky than good most of the time. And then from the West, I feel like the biggest threat is Arkansas State. I've watched them play a couple of games, and that team's communication is just next level.
I also look at Texas State out there in the West. They comfortably swept Coastal. They also swept Troy, who have yet to play. They split their series with Arkansas State, the other top team there in the West. Splitting that series with Arkansas State and sweeping those two good opponents puts them right at the top of the Sun Belt.
And you guys talk about the strength of this team and who are some teams to look out for. However, on this past game for this volleyball team, they went to 5 sets against Marshall, who isn't necessarily the strongest team in the Sun Belt when it comes to volleyball. Can y'all talk through a little bit of maybe some of the weaknesses that this App State team showed right there? And do you think it'll be a persistent issue?
So the biggest thing, especially that I've seen in both the games that I've called, is service errors. We cannot escape the service errors. And the first game, we had 1 the whole game, and we beat Marshall in 3 sets. The second game, we had 12, and it went to 5 sets. Those crucial losing the ball, especially when you're down after scoring a point, is what cost us sets.
And I will say, to your point, Bobby, we played a lot of games that go to 5 sets. We played 8 of those games so far. Now, to be fair to App State, they're 7-1 in those 8 games, but that fatigue can wear on as the season progresses. If you play more volleyball, you get more fatigue, you get a little more tired. Of course, the experience helps in those 5-set games, but that's not what you want to see going forward into the tournament. You have to clean up your errors, as you mentioned, Will. You have to clean up your attack and your service errors because that lets teams back into matches. Matches get too close at that point.
I feel like against Marshall in that set 2 or 3 and 4, you really saw a lot of just sloppy communication. There was bad sets that were just over the hitter's hands. There was saves that were just left to hit the ground because everybody looked at each other and it dropped in between them. So it's little things really that are making us go to 5 sets.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that experience comes through in the crunch time of the season if the Mountaineers are able to persevere through the final stretch. But stay right where you are. We'll be back with more of the A-Game. Welcome back to the A-Game. Staying at App State Sports, basketball is underway. Both the men's and women's teams lost their season opener against Miami of Ohio. However, both teams were able to bounce back with home wins. I'm here with Grace Ellen Callahan, sports fan and commentator on 90.5 WASU, and Andrew Williams, avid sports fan and a rookie to the A-Game. And so, guys, we'll be starting a little bit with the women's team. Who are some players that have been standouts so far this season?
So I think one of the first players that stand out to me is coming from the bench, Sanaya Martinez. She's been the top scorers for both of the games so far, and I feel like she deserves more minutes, as well as Jamani Ingram. She also comes from the bench, and she's also been one of the top scorers for App State women's basketball.
I think those are both great players that you bring out there, Andrew. I think Sanaya Martinez has just been amazing, and she's also been great on the floor defensively as well. And also, I really like how Jamani Ingram has come into this, filled into those shoes of just sort of how we saw Faith Alston a little bit last year, just really filling in the role of, the three-pointer and just a really well-rounded shooter. And that's some shoes that we're really looking to see who's going to fill in those shoes. this year. However, a player that I'm really excited to really kind of get going in this season is Emily Carver. She's been hyped up a lot over this season, and she's definitely being pushed in to fill in those leadership roles. And I think that's going to be something very interesting to see how she shows out, because I know her points and her statistics aren't looking too great right now. However, I'm really excited to see how she just kind of evolves as a player.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of really key players on this team, and a lot of these players have come in as a result of Alora Sharp, who a lot of fans really enjoy talking to and watching so far this season. What is something from Alora Sharp's system on this team that y'all have liked this year, or maybe something you want to see her improve on?
So one thing I definitely want to see her improve on is the offense. The first coming from the start of the season, the offense has definitely struggled, but I feel like a new coach, new system that could bring a whole new atmosphere, whole new culture to the team that maybe App State women's basketball has not seen yet, and maybe this could bring a whole different impact that could be either, maybe not good at all, but something that has a lot of potential and could be something good for App State women's basketball.
Something that I'm really excited about Alora Sharp is I like the positive energy that she's bringing to this team. I mean, we'll get to basketball in a second, but there has not been this much hype around women's basketball in a second. And Alora Sharp has brought that in. And we've seen that in her press conferences. We've seen that in the energy that she is bringing to this overall team of people that are excited to show up to these women's basketball games. There were fans at the women's basketball game an hour and a half beforehand. And whether that was Student Yosef Club or not, you normally do not see fans an hour and a half early to these women's basketball games. That's stuff that you've seen at football. And so to start seeing this with fans definitely interested in the women's basketball game, it's very exciting, and Alora Sharp has brought a lot of that energy. Now, to how she's translating into the game. I think that's great how she's spreading the ball, and she's giving a lot of people an opportunity. And she's working with a lot of new players right now. I know we talk about the men's basketball team a lot and how they had a complete reset, only 4 returning players. I think working with what she has right now, this is a completely new coaching staff, and that's a lot different. I think someone else I want to bring out is Mara Neira. She leads the team in points right now. She's another transfer in that we haven't seen before. Also, Zeta Porter. I mean, I feel like I'm doing Alora Sharp right now. She lists off every single one of her players.
Yeah.
But I really like how she's evolving it, but I want to see her start to really find her standout players so that defenses have to maybe double team that player, and she starts building a game plan around some of these strong players, because that's going to be huge if you want, as going into conference, of just how you want the other team to adapt to this App State Mountaineers offense.
And what do you think should be the primary strategy? They go on to play UNCG on the weekend. What do you believe should be the strategy for this team going up against the Spartans?
Kind of like Grace said, that this team is still looking for those players, and Jemiah Ingram, Sanaya Martinez. I think it's going to be those players that are going to help contribute to this system. Like she said, maybe getting them to double a player, or trying to find somewhere open, maybe attack down low, maybe try to get a shot open. It's going to be something that's going to get this team going forward, going into these big games ahead of the season.
I think those are good players, and I think they will do well. I'm really interested to see Zeta Porter, though, because she really sat behind Faith Alston last year. Jemani Ingram was there, but Zeta Porter was heavily right behind. And when Faith Alston went to the bench, to drink some water, Zeta Porter filled in. And I really like how Zeta Porter was versatile on the ball, versatile on both sides of the ball, especially on defense. She had a really big block against Columbia College at the 3. It wasn't even in the paint. It was on the 3-point line. And that was a huge momentum switch. And that really stuck out to me because she's worked on developing her gameplay and becoming a better player. And she obviously learned a lot under Faith Alston, and she's showing that right now. And we're seeing how she has just been a sponge in this organization. And even with a new coaching change and so many new changes right now, you can see she's really trying to play a big leadership role, even though she's maybe not the Emily Carvers or the Rylan Mofitts of this team right now.
Yeah, it's definitely been a great thing to see how Alora Sharp has really spread the ball around and really changed the game plan when it comes to what players she really wants to run through. But now looking at the mid side of the ball, they've had a little bit of a shakier start to open up the season. Excuse me, but they lost their home opener against Miami of Ohio. They beat St. Andrews at home and then went on the road to face Wisconsin 87-56, I believe, now with a record of 1-2. What do you think has really been the main issues for this team so far early in the season?
So I think one of the main issues of this team is not finding a way to get to the rim. During the St. Andrews game, it really showed that when the ball got to the rim, we were successful, and also it was on defense as well. St. Andrews could not stop us. If they tried going to the rim, it was block after block after block. I think we probably had over 20 blocks at the end of the game. And also, the bench was also cleared out. Everybody saw playing time, which was a really good thing. And, those games, St. Andrews, you know you're going to win them. And as big as a win like that, you want those confidence boosters going into the conference season when you start playing those opponents like Wisconsin that we couldn't beat, but, experience. It might have been a bad loss, but take the positives out of it. And also eliminating turnovers, 29 turnovers against Wisconsin. You don't even want more than 10. They're not good at all. And just got to shoot better as well, too.
I really like when you mentioned turnovers there, Andrew, because not only are we giving the ball away, but when we get the ball back, we're not maximizing potential off of those points. We're not making it to the rim, and we're not being aggressive. And like how you said, we were successful against St. Andrews when we were driving to the rim. We are a team that is built to be in the paint. One of Wisconsin's teammates, who unfortunately, I think it might have been Michael Kleinman or Max Kleinman, something along those lines, he talked about in his post-game press conference about how much they prepared for App State to be in the paint, because that's our strong suit and that's how teams prepare for us. But however, I think we're starting to see a little bit of App State football right there. Because Wisconsin knew exactly what to guard, they made us go out to the perimeter. And even though we had some strong shots in the beginning, we hit a couple threes and, we put Wisconsin on their heels, they went on a 24-0 run on us. 15 of those, 15 turnovers. That's insane. That's just how are you supposed to win a basketball game off that? You go into the half, and even the second half, we were outscored only by 4 points, but because we were down by double digits going into the half, we never even gave ourselves a shot. And that's something that if you break basketball down to these simple things like the turnovers, and you're giving the ball away, and you're not maximizing off of your own defensive wins, you're just shooting your own self in the foot on that.
So what do you think is the main thing Dustin Kearns can do to help stop some of these major issues with the turnovers on this team?
I think creating different looks, maybe run a different action, When you keep running the same thing over and over again, it's not going to work. And like she said, when they know what you're going to do, they're going to cover it. It's college basketball. They're going to prepare for these things. There's film, they know what's going to happen. And if you just keep running the same thing, it's not going to work. So maybe a different action, maybe, screen a guy, double screen, find somebody open. It's just whoever wants it is going to get it.
I think that's a really good point, Andrew. However, I think we need to attack on the defensive side. I think there was a side to really everything that we're trying to re-scramble and refigure out under this new Dustin Kearns era with this new team. We don't have Justin Abson. We don't have Trayvon Spillers. Those guys that saved us a lot in the paint last year, they got a ton of blocks. We led the country in blocks per game. We were so dominant in that arena, and that became such a big part of this game plan. And so now Dustin Kearns is redoing the framework with all of these players, and he's like, okay, who's going to be my presence for that? Because that was a huge source of turnovers. And I think a bright spot in all this has been new incomer Michael Marcus Jr. He's one of the 6 true freshmen to come into this roster, which is also crazy to think about. You have 8 freshmen on the team, 6 of them are true freshmen, and Michael Marcus is one of them. He had an outstanding game against St. Andrews, including the fact that I think he had 3 blocks on the game. He put up 18 points.
A double-double.
Yes, a double-double as your second. I don't even think he
coming off of the bench.
Yeah, he came off the bench, exactly. And that's huge. You have players coming off the bench and how to use them. That's going to be huge to bring into this game plan. I think it's something where Dustin Kearns needs to start, especially after seeing so much revealed against Wisconsin.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how that progresses throughout the season, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about some college football right here on the A-Game. Welcome back to the A-Game. It's now time to talk college football. Last game, the Mountaineers fell to a 4-5 record after a 38-24 loss to Coastal Carolina. While the Mountaineers are still able to become bowl eligible, they need to win the 2 remaining games. I'm here with JD Rogers, host of Fantasy Friday on 90.5 WASU, and Noah Robertson, a rookie to the A game and an avid fan of football. So, guys, my first question for y'all is, what went wrong in the game for the Mountaineers?
You know, it's a common theme of the defense, and the defense letting Coastal Carolina, out of all teams, score 38 points against them, and they just have, it's the same thing all season, and you just watch it, and it's like a record on repeat. And you hate to see it because we've had great defenses in the past, and it's not good, and they need to figure out something to do with this. And we have talent all over the place. I'm not really sure where the miscommunication is with this team. I don't know if it's the coaches and the schemes. I don't know if it's the players not doing what they're told to do or what they're supposed to do. But something needs to change in these next 2 games to try to become bowl eligible, and also in the following season.
Yeah, like JD said, we sound like broken records at this point. I mean, letting up 48 points, South Alabama, 52 points to Marshall, and then Thursday night, 38 points to Coastal Carolina. The run defense especially has been atrocious, letting up 3 touchdowns in the game against Coastal Carolina. And we have an upcoming game against JMU, and they're kind of becoming our rivals a little bit in most sports. And I'm hoping that we have a bit of a culture game, we'll have all the fans, just hoping that the team can pull through, have a good effort regardless of the outcome. And if we don't see a good effort from the team, defensively or offensively, some things coaching-wise maybe will have to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And then one big thing that is a result of this past Coastal Carolina game was the fact that Caden Robinson went down with a season-ending injury. So he's done for the Mountaineers for his career in college. Who do you guys see as a wide receiver stepping up to fill those shoes of Caden Robinson going into the final 2 games?
Yeah, I know we have Foles out there, and we got a couple other good guys that can fill that slot for him. I just want to say, Caden Robinson, we love you. I really hope that you're back. You're not going to be back soon, but I hope that the rest of your career goes well. But yes, Caden Robinson, big love all around. But we do have some guys and some young guys that can fill in that role. And I think our wide receiver room all around was one of our better, if not the best rooms in all of our team. So I think we got some people that can step up. And I'm excited to see, if not this year, them getting into it and getting ready to be that guy next year.
Yeah, and it really starts with the run game up front and the offensive line. We have 3 great running backs that we can switch in between. And if we can get the run game going early in the game, then that'll open up our passing offense, and that'll just help us thrive.
And Noah, you just talked about the run game a little bit. One standout player for the Mountaineers over the past 3 games or so has been Amani Marshall. He's been on fire, rushing over 100 yards in each of those games. What do you guys see as the big key to that success?
Yeah, Monty Marshall, man. I don't know why he wasn't getting the rock at the beginning of the season. He has been doing some crazy things, and it started a couple weeks ago when he blocked that punt, and they decided, you know what, maybe give him some more reps. He blocked a punt, put him out there, and you know what he did? He showed out, and none of our running backs have done that all year. And it's really nice to see somebody hit a hole and hit it hard and do what a running back is supposed to do. Kanye Roberts showed some glimpses, Castle showed some glimpses, but Amani Marshall, man, big love.
And so the Mountaineers are eliminated from playoff contention for the college football championship that happened way earlier in the season than most fans had expected. But looking ahead for the college football playoffs, who are some teams y'all are looking forward to play in the big now new tournament?
Yeah, I was really hoping that App State would be able to pull through, get that Group of 5 bid in there. Boise State's in that position right now. They're looking really good. I think that all they have to do is win out, and they get there if they win their conference championships. And I'm really excited to see Ashton Genty in the playoffs and see what he can do. He put up almost 200 yards against Oregon early in the season. He had 30 carries still, but I think he is not going to falter against any big-time teams. Looking towards the top, they got Texas ranked up pretty high right now. I think that they haven't really shown anything against a very good team. They got throttled by Georgia earlier in the season. And, they've been handling the people that they need to, but I need to see them win a good game. And they got a good one coming up at the end of the season with Texas A&M. And if Texas A&M wins, there's a lot of 2-win teams in the SEC, and we never know who's going to make it in and who's not. If Georgia, Tennessee play next week. If Tennessee loses, then we got another 2-win team in there. And if those two things happen, there's going to be 6 2-win teams in the SEC. And I don't really know how the committee is going to deal with that. And we got a bunch of stuff coming out tonight about it. But there is a lot of antics going on with the whole college football playoff scenario. Love the 12 team, but they're kind of starting a bit earlier, I may say. None of this is going to really matter until the end of the season.
Yeah, Noah, who are you looking forward to in the playoff?
Yeah, obviously everyone's favorite player in college football right now is Ashton Genty and the Boise State Broncos. But honestly, their main problem is they've played a lot of like mid-Mountain West teams. So when they go into that playoff game, they'll probably be the 12 seed guaranteed G5 spot. And they're going to be going up against the number 1 or 2 SEC team, depending on who loses the conference championship. And if they can get the run game going early in that game, their passing offense has been good this season, but against an SEC defense, it's a whole different ball game.
Well, they don't have to be the 12th seed. If they went out and a couple teams keep losing, they might bump up into that a couple spots above that, and you never know how it could shake out. And they only lost by 3 to Oregon earlier in the season.
This is true.
So, yeah, they definitely have been one of the bright spots in college football this year. And speaking of bright spots, who do you guys have as your number 1 prediction to win the entire thing?
I'm going to take Oregon because, they just looked absolutely like the best team in college football right now. My sleeper team is going to be Colorado, though. If they, what they've been doing this season is actually amazing. They 7-2, and they're 7-2, and they were 1-12 2 years ago. Absolutely insane. If they win their conference championships, they will get into the college football playoffs. And they got a star-studded roster, and I'm excited to see what they can do if they get in there.
Yeah, you would think a team like Oregon or Ohio State would be my pick because they're just the top dogs right now, but we know the history Ohio State has, and Oregon doesn't have as much history in the playoffs. So I honestly would have to go with Texas, actually, contrasting what JD said.
Yeah.
I'm an Alabama fan. I like Steve Sarkisian a lot as a coach. Quinn Ewers is back fully healthy from injury. They have playoff experience, and I really think that they could thrive, make a deep run. One of my sleeper teams, who the rankings haven't come out yet, obviously, is actually SMU out of the ACC. With the Miami loss to Georgia Tech this weekend, they are now alone in the conference standings. The ACC, they're the only undefeated team. And if the SMU, Clemson, and Miami all wins out, Miami won't even make the conference championship, and they have a bye this week. So they can only sit and look at the rankings as SMU wins out. The ACC winner automatically gets a bid into the playoffs, and they probably won't be in the ranking this week. But I think they could make a little bit of a Cinderella run.
So as a Bama fan, you don't think they got a shot?
I would, as much as I'd like to talk about Alabama. They've had a great last 2 weeks, obviously, against Mizzou and LSU, but those are kind of mid-tier SEC teams, and last 2 months have been kind of rough, especially those Tennessee teams, Vanderbilt and UT.
Sure.
It's going to be tough. They kept their playoff hopes alive this week, but depending on who they play, whoever they get, it really depends on who they play in the playoffs. But I could see them winning a game. I don't know about all the way based off the inexperience of Kalen DeBoer's coaching, and it's a whole different ballgame between Nick Saban and Kalen DeBoer.
And JD, Noah just touched on this a little bit, but who's possibly for you a sleeper team going into the college football playoffs? Maybe not necessarily to win the whole thing, but at least make some noise.
And maybe not the biggest sleeper as they are undefeated, but Indiana, man, they look good. And I know that they just squeaked out a win last week, but I really like them. I think we'll really get to see what they're going to do as they play Ohio State in a couple weeks. But I think that they have the chance to go all the way, definitely win a couple of games there. Somebody I would really like to see get into the playoffs is Army. They have the chance to. They play Notre Dame in 2 weeks, I believe, and I think if they win that game, they definitely will be in because they will be undefeated and have a top 10 opponent. And I think that would also bump Notre Dame out, so they would just come in and take Notre Dame's spot.
It will definitely be an interesting story to see how that develops going into the new exciting playoff format that everybody's talking about. But I appreciate you guys being on today. And as always, thank you for joining us on the A Game. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at AppTVInsta, and go App.